everybody, it's Rory from A&S Gear, and we're going to look at the Luxe Ice today. Get a little bit more in depth with it, take some parts, take some pieces apart, kind of show you what's going on inside, what's different than the other one. More from just a information standpoint, but more of like from a hands-on standpoint. So I do have a standard 2.0 OLED here, just so that if we need to reference it, we can kind of see how things are different or why they're different. So we'll open it up. I know you guys saw the other video that Michael did where he kind of explained what you're going to get with it. So let's go a little bit further than that. So the gun itself is right here. Cosmetically from the outside, obviously you can see the differences. A couple things that you might not have seen or noticed from the other one is the feed neck lever. Feed neck lever is kind of a different shape now, a little bit easier to grab onto and pull back. I think it flows a little bit better with the feed neck or the actual feed neck housing. Looks a little better on there. Backside, obviously, if it wasn't pointed out, there's no cutout in the bolt latch anymore. As you can see on the other one, there's a cutout right here where you could actually grab it with your thumb and lift it up and pull it back. They got rid of that to make it just look smooth and pretty. All you need to do is now just push on the back. You push on the back, you can see that it does open up or lift up. So you push on it, grab it, and then you can pull it right out. I guess from the outside, we'll talk about the ASA real quick. The new lever on the ASA, you might think would be a little hard to push against some tanks. I've put this on a bunch of different tanks, and literally you just snap it shut. It is not hard to push a ball valve down, a pin valve down, any of those valves down. It just really, it's nice, it's simple. It was much easier than I thought it would be. I thought it would be quite hard to push those things down. From the inside or from a disassembly perspective, you do need to pull this lever off if you're planning to remove the ASA off, but it does just come out in a little pin. You flip the lever down and you can actually just pull it right out. You can see that the stem is on a little bit of a linkage right here. Lets it move freely back and forth without binding up. And then this little slot is supposed to be on there, and that's your vent, so that when you degas, the air has a way to transfer out and escape to atmosphere, letting it degas. So this must come out if you plan on putting your Allen keys in through the top here to remove the ASA off of the frame. Kind of like the old one, you had to unscrew this off to get it out. Same deal. But with this flip lever now, it's so much easier. Much easier than I thought it would be, which is good. And it does have a little magnet in there, so it will snap down and hold by itself. It's not just kind of flopping around down there, for lack of a better term. All right, so let's put this thing back in here. Now, a lot of guys wanted to see what it looks like underneath the grips. Doesn't really look any different, to be honest with you. We'll point out some differences, but from just an outside standpoint, it's really visually looks the same. So here's this coming off of here. On this backside, the backside of the board, you still have your I-wire running through here. On the other side, speaker, solenoid, joystick, solenoid wire. It's all pretty much the same setup. One of the things that are different is the I-wire itself. The I-wire is a little bit narrower than it was before, and they've cut a groove into the frame now so that the I-wire actually sits and runs through a little groove or a little channel, rather than having it just kind of flop out the top of the frame and lay over and then lock into the bottom down here. There's a little passage for the I-wire to sit, so it actually sits below the flush level of the frame, which is good for when you're putting your grips on. I've seen people catch the eyes with their grips and rip them apart. So this keeps it nice and low, out of the way, easy to get your grips on. And your charging port is still in the front right there, so you plug it right in, and there you go. But for this part, I mean, obviously that all kind of looks the same from what you're used to seeing. A little bit of difference right there. Now the I-wire itself is different than it was before. It's two pieces now. Comes up and runs through here to this section right here. We'll take it apart and you can see it. And then it's actually like a press connection or a sprung connection, where this section of the wire comes up and it stops right here with the connector. And then the upper section that actually goes to the eyes is a completely different piece of wire, and it has a connector on it, and they push together to make a complete path. But the eye itself, like the wiring, is smaller. So let me get this out of the way so you can see it. here. It might be a little hard to see, but we'll try. And even the eye covers are different now. The new eye cover has a bigger latch, so it's easier to grab onto. So we can kind of move that one out of the way. Push that one forward. Now you can see the eye right here on this one, how wide it is and how big it is. And it actually had to drop into a little slot with a little lip on it, and it's what held it in place. The new one is a little bit smaller. I got a pick here. It's thinner, as you can see, and there's a round hole right here where it actually it uses it kind of as a mount. There's a little knob right there, and it actually drops onto that nub and holds it in place. So you don't have to like slide it under a little lip anymore. And you can see that, well, maybe you can't see because it's kind of hard to see even from where I'm sitting. But the wire itself is much thinner than it was before. I don't know if you can actually see that in there, but thinner wire. So less things to get caught on, less ways to pinch it. And plus, since it's actually two pieces now, it makes it easier to work with rather than having to run it down there. I can't tell you how many times I saw people smash their eye ribbons because they didn't properly run it through the frame. Now you don't have to worry about that. All right, so let's move to the reg. We'll talk about the regulator. They've simplified the reg so much, makes it so easy to work on. So let's go ahead and take it apart. I believe it's a 5/16. It's going to let you get the top or the retainer out. So we're going to pull this out. Unscrews right here, and it's marked on the bottom. It tells you like which way to turn your adjustment key to increase or decrease velocity. Now remember, it's a smaller Allen key to use for velocity than it is to disassemble. So it's 5/30 seconds for disassembly and 5/16 for, or 5/16 for disassembly, 5/30 seconds for velocity adjustment. With the retainer out the bottom right here, we can go ahead and we'll be able to remove this front plate and get to the internals on the inside there. So let's go ahead and do that. So we've got this off. That'll let us actually get our thumb underneath here and get our fingers under there. So we can actually just pull this piece right off. When you put it together, you want to start with the top, put it into its little lip right there, and then just push it together and then slide this piece back in, and that will lock it down. But once that piece comes out, we can just pop that right off, and it exposes the regulator. Now again, the regulator, the actual housing to the regulator, same Allen key that you use to remove the retainer. We're going to drop it into the top, and we're going to unscrew it. Once we've come up all the way, you can actually just grab it and pull it out. That's our entire regulator right now. There's nothing left on the inside there except for the filter, which is down in the bottom. But I mean, if you wanted to take the filter out, you could. You can leave it down in there unless it's dirty and you want to clean it. Now to get inside the regulator, there's two little slots cut, or two little, I guess, little divots cut or circles cut. Just grab it, and you can pull it right out. So there's our piston spring, reg seat, and then our, excuse me, our velocity adjuster is inside here at the bottom. If we wanted to remove our velocity adjuster out, there's a little clip right here that keeps the velocity adjuster from being able to be turned all the way out when you're adjusting it. You just pop that clip out, and then you can remove the adjuster out. We don't need to pull it out, but it's simple if you wanted to. Put it back together, we just drop that back in, like that. Put our filter back in there. Reg assembly in. Tighten it down. Put our front cap on. Drop that in. And put that in. It's so simple. I know the old reg on this one, on the 2.0s, you had like a set screw you had to line up and disassemble the body and everything. A little bit more hassle than was needed, but for this one, super simple to take apart. Really, really nice. Now, if we go to separate our frame from our body, we're going to need to do one of two things. We do need to pull the bolt out, and then we do not need to disconnect the eye wire. We Actually don't need to really do anything. We don't need to disconnect the solenoid. No, actually we do, sorry. Don't listen to me on that. Solenoid does need to come off because the solenoid's actually attached to the upper body. So unplug the solenoid. And then our 1/8, take out our 2 body screws here. 1, 2, and then we can just kind of wiggle it. You always want to be careful when you separate these frames apart that you don't get these wires caught or pinched or broken or anything like that. So gently drop it down and move it out of the way. Now we can see our solenoid, same setup as we had before. Now we just don't have this eye wire that used to run through this channel before to get back and then curl out the side of the body here. You can see we have these push buttons right here, these press connect buttons right there. And they're gonna match up with this side with these pads over here, and that makes our complete circuit. So they've eliminated all of that potential crushing of the eye ribbon by running that ribbon along the side here and out. So it's all hidden. You don't need to worry about it flopping around in there anymore. And then now it's just a very short wire from this post to here and to here, a short ribbon to make those connections. So it's much, much easier to deal with. It's a good step right there. That's kind of it for the frame setup right here. Again, the frame is a different shape than it was before, a little bit more streamlined. And they've changed the screen on the back, or not necessarily the screen, just the shape of the glass that you're looking through, the plastic you're looking through, to kind of make it a little more streamlined. So kind of the last piece we would look at then is the bolt to see where your differences are there. So let's pull this one out. You can see that they've made a much larger cut into the can up at the front here, and then the shaping is different. One of probably the biggest differences is the articulating bolt guide that's inside of there. If we pull apart this one, this is our old one, the 2.0. This piece right here didn't move or shut or anything like that. So in order to increase efficiency like they did, they wanted to be able to cut the gas flow that's flowing up and in and filling the bolt chamber as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So doing that, they've created a bolt guide that moves. So when the bolt's in the rear position and everything's back, the bolt guide is actually slid back. When the gun shoots, the valve or the chamber dumps and the air comes out the front, the bolt guide itself is able to slide forward and cut the gas pressure, cut the air traveling up into the bolt and not lose any of that air coming through. It effectively just shuts the valve, or it works as a valve and shuts down, and it helps trap that air, and you're not just wasting it out, not doing anything. So it keeps the air usage down to a minimum, making the gun a little bit more efficient. If you need to get into this section before all you needed to do to get to your bolt guide was you could unscrew it right out the front. You could put an Allen key through here and turn this and get your bolt guide out. It's a little bit more complicated to do that now. If you had to maintenance it for any reason, to do that, you would need to remove the top here. That'll let the actual cap come off of there. And then you could use this O-ring. This O-ring right here just kind of runs over the top and works as a little, I don't know, like a little spring, I guess, to keep the latch down. You want to pull that off, just take it off of its little slot there. And then you could unscrew this whole back piece. I might not be able to do it. My hands are pretty greasy here. There we go. Got it off of there. So that just comes right off the back. We've got the spring that helps drive the bolt guide forward once it's in its rear or compressed state. And then the bolt guide will slide right out the back and drop through here. Now, there is an O-ring that sits on here, so don't forget about that one when you go to put everything together. you've got 3 O-rings that sit on there. Yeah, that's right. Thinking about where my O-ring should be. So there's an extra one on there. It kind of just floats on there. But that's how you take it apart. Not very hard. Not very, you don't need to do a lot of wrenching on it or anything like that. It's a very simple takedown. And it's a welcome difference or welcome change in order to get that efficiency up. Now we all know that the gun runs at a different pressure internally. So let me go ahead and put this together and we'll talk about that. So they're running at about, I think they said 140 PSI now, which is great. Got an increase in volume through here, increase in efficiency, 20% increase in efficiency, lower operating pressure. That's due to a lot of things, the coating that they've got on the bolt now, the friction reduction, the air passages that they're milled now, so there's optimal airflow. All those things combined together are going to give it those benefits on there. But from a maintenance standpoint, they've reduced all the potential problems maintenance-wise that made people think, oh, that gun, it's just too hard to work on or do anything like that. They've definitely made it easier for people to understand. With the bolt itself, drastically reducing maintenance cycles, so you can shoot these a lot longer before having to do total maintenance on them. But with any gun, you should never just assume that it's right. You should do the maintenance that you need to do, inspect your bolt before you play, look at it, make sure that there's no damage to your O-rings and things like that, which there shouldn't be in the first place if you're taking care of it. You're just going to have less, you're going to have to replace things less often with this new bolt system and just with the gun in general. They're trying to prevent people from making the mistakes and ruining the product by making it as simple and concise as possibly possible. That's pretty much it with stuff that's new. Hopefully this gives you guys a little bit more insight into what's going on inside the gun as far as how it works and what is actually different between the ICE and the OLED 2.0. So definitely check them out on the website. More colors will be rolling out as we move along. I know they are doing a certain number of guns and a certain number of colors, and then they'll move on to new colors and a new number of guns. So there won't always be every color available, but at least there'll be new colors available at all times, and maybe that's something that strikes your fancy. So check it out. Check the website for color availability and order your Luxe ICE through ansgear.com.